And if you're watching this now, it has probably been several episodes. So Apolly and Roberto, basically a mirror of each other. Roberto will die earlier on, so his will prove more difficult in the end. We'll start with Apolly, because his should be easier, one would imagine. Now, we don't have the fancy back shots when we use the dark-colored Rick Diaz. We get the head. It's not even really a head Vulcan. It's like a twin-barreled cannon. Looks like one of the things the Soviets would have used in the 70s. Or the Iraqis used in the 90s. And the aughts.
Yes, I am. I'm ready.
Soviet tech finds its way everywhere.
All right, make sure you keep your eyes wide open. Titans will be in hot pursuit right behind us.
Cockpit in the head. I mean, that makes some sense, right? As opposed to putting it in the body at all. But you need a fairly large machine to support that, and to some extent, even in the Gundam universe, the only reason they can get away with that is because the head of the Rick Diaz is sort of part of the body. Like, it's articulated. It's not really part of the body. But it's this huge dome on top of an already massive shape. I mean, the big issue there, of course, is the sensors, because if you're going to put the cockpit in the head, the sensors become an issue. Because they require space and internal volume as well.
Heading back.
It's such a tiny bazooka. I mean, it worked against space battleships, so no sense complaining about that.
Apolly, ready to launch. Okay, let's go.
Wait a minute, why does Roberto get a red one? Where's my red one?
Did I get him? Take this. Did I get him?
Did he have a red one at this point? I find it funny that a lot of people have featured hot re-entry to a planet where it's like, oh, you can't enter the atmosphere without burning up. And it's like, yes, but the act of physically entering a planet does not create heat, it's the deceleration. Because if you're at an orbital velocity, you're traveling fast, and I don't have a specific number, but you're going quick. And the issue, of course, is that when you descend to the planet, at that speed, you're going to be hitting the air at such velocity that it's going to create all this friction, all this heat. Because one of the points that they made is, of course, if you want to decelerate so that you just kind of fall out of orbit vertically, if you had the fuel and the thrust, you could do that. You could literally just pop the brakes by burning a thruster, and then you don't, like, burn up in a friction-based re-entry. You just kind of fall down to the planet. The reason we don't do that is because it's difficult enough to get spacecraft into space and carry the fuel for that, then try to decelerate them out of space. Using the atmospheric air is a fuel-saving measure. It's not just going to be hot because you're going into a planet. And on planets with no atmosphere, that's not even an issue, because the thermal protection necessary for, like, say, Mars insertion, that's not even a thing. That's not even an issue.
Apolly, heading out.
Well, it is, because Mars does have an atmosphere. It's just very thin. And the point is that you don't need nearly as much as you do coming into Earth, because Mars is a smaller planet. It's got about half of Earth's gravity. It's got maybe a tenth of the atmosphere pressure. I mean, space and aeronautics is sort of the bleeding edge of engineering. That and stuff that goes at the bottom of the ocean. These are some extreme environments that you have to deal with. And orbital mechanics and so forth is just interesting from a whole other perspective. I mean, I watched a Kurzgesagt video of what if the moon sort of fell towards the Earth, and the funny part is that it doesn't physically impact the Earth. I mean, there's mass destruction, death, and apocalyptic happenings, sure. You certainly wouldn't want it to happen. But in the end, the moon ends up breaking apart and becoming rings, and that actually got me thinking, because from a visual standpoint, what would it be like to be on a planet that had prominent rings? Because, of course, even on a planetary scale, I mean, we know now, of course, that rings are collections of dust and debris and so forth. They're not a solid whatever, but from the surface of the planet, they would still look that way. And it would be sort of like this big mirror. You'd have this massive ring casting daylight into the night, in the same sense that when you have harvest moons, it's bright, it's very pretty. And I just thought that, because Saturn was always sort of my favorite planet, not on any scientific grounds, but because it's got rings and it's pretty, because they're big rings. And it's got a cool, like, tan or orange color to it. And I thought that, well, you know, that would be pretty, though, living on a planet with rings. Because you'd look up and you'd have this big... I mean, it's that notion that sort of drives humans to go into space in the first place, because, you know, there's mountains and there's deserts, and if you haven't been out of the house, then, you know, maybe you wouldn't have seen one of these things. But at the end of the day, sooner or later, you're going to run into everything that exists on Earth. But, you know, bar none. It's just, you've seen it. But out there, what is out there? And I feel like that's echoed by the sort of nautical people from, a few centuries prior, about what's on the other side of that ocean. Of course, their idea was, how can we profit from what's on the other side of that ocean? And I suppose you need that mindset, considering that the pilgrimage in and of itself is going to be hilariously expensive. There better be something valuable there just to recoup costs. Well, that was kind of the original notion behind Star Trek, was the idea that we go out there not to find new resources to plunder or people to indoctrinate. We go out there just to see what's out there, that we're driven by unfettered curiosity. And the issue, of course, was that perhaps naive idealism has been replaced with a more practical cynicism in more modern Star Trek incarnations, which is why I don't bother with them. It might be Star Trek in name, but it kind of betrays the whole spirit of what Star Trek was meant to be. You know, let's not abandon the hope that one day humanity might be a more idealized version of itself on the grounds that, well, it hasn't happened yet. And that is what the philosophers would call feeding the wrong monster. Or is it feeding the wrong animal? Mauer, I don't know why you were so committed to Jared, because Lord knows there's no reason. Oh, and now Sarah. Oh, she's gone. Oh. I mean, that was kind of the broader point of, like, the new Battlestar Galactica that they did, was the idea that there was this cycle of hatred. And there's a broader notion about technology and human ambition and so forth, but there was this notion of a recurring cycle of hatred and the idea that the powers that be, which are hypothesized to be advanced aliens in the context of the story, because that was in the original story, let's not forget. But the powers that be were trying to find some way of breaking this cycle for humanity, to free them from an endless cycle of death and hatred and retribution. And that maybe it happened, but also, you know, they don't know what the future holds. Thank God they didn't end that first season the way they were thinking of having Dirk Benedict be God and just show up there, because that would have just... People thought things got too theological or whatever in season, what, 3? And it's like, oh, that would have just killed if Dirk Benedict showed up and was like, hi, I'm God. I'm sure he sees it as a grand missed opportunity, but no, that's not what the show is about. It isn't. I mean, yeah, sure, they broke down a lot of the sense of mystery in the later seasons, but... Because, I mean, Kara's resurrection, how did that happen? The only way you can explain it without going, like, oh, well, you know, magic, God, spirit people, is to embrace the notion of sufficiently advanced aliens. Because, like I said, that was in the original series. You know, the Lords of Kobol are not... I mean, the Colonials and the Cylons and so forth, they attribute to them to be fantastic mythological beings, but they were probably just really sophisticated space people that took some kind of an interest in mankind, that they could civilize us and give us technology, and then one of them was like, yes, but they're still savages. I'm gonna make my own species, but with blackjack and hookers. And then the Cylons were created, and, you know, the rest of the plot ensues. That was one notion, again, another thing that Gundam Wing kind of screwed up. They introduced this notion of autonomous mobile suits that operate themselves, but beyond the fact that, like, oh, well, if we have enough economic power, we can just manufacture these things, and we don't really have to dither ourselves with whether or not we have loyal soldiers or whatever. The machines will just do as they're told. And it's like, yes, but there's a lot of depth to making something like that automated. I mean, what happens if somebody can hack into your machines? What if the machines, you know, the Terminator route, what if they become intelligent? None of this was explored. We have the mobile doll system. Mobile suits can operate themselves now, and they're fine. They work great. There was literally nothing else explored beyond that. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter, because otherwise it'll start yet another long bitch fest about Gundam Wing that nobody wants to hear. I mean, we get shades of that again. Gundam 00 kind of, you know, covering that patch in the pavement. Dunkel is ready to pop. If I could just connect, thank you. Because the Innovades are artificial beings. They are intelligences created by mankind meant to serve us. And what happens? They go rogue. It's a plot line that's actually explored. They don't quite explore how Veda is so powerful as a computer and yet has no will of its own, no ability to interpret its own thing. But, okay, sure, fine. Maybe it's just built different. Yeah, the notion of we're creating an artificial life form is actually explored in 00. They actually did that. It becomes the whole main driving crux of the second season. God, this beam rifle's such a pea shooter. Oh! I think I had recover equipped. Mathus, that's 2 friendly fires. Are you kidding me with this? God. There we go. There we go. I'm gonna have to upgrade this thing. Twice, probably. At least it's cheap in that regard. All favors. I'm gonna have to go back on the Titans routes, because I haven't actually played Titans that much. I think I've voiced that I don't enjoy playing the Titans that much. It's just not... The mobile suit selection's not great, it's just not all that interesting. Okay, so yeah, let's pump 2 into that. And right there, that is as much as I would spend to upgrade, like the Zeta Gundam or something, once to get 2 levels in the Rick Diaz. We're gonna bazooka and recover, because he is supposed to die here.
Okay, let's go. One down. Fine. There.
Whoa! Hi there. Here comes Jared. Jared, you couldn't burn a match to ashes, and you know it. Yeah, come here, and I'll show you how we do it at Luna 2. Whoa. Oh. Oh, no, I think that got blocked by the wreckage of this Busai. Ow! Honestly, the modeling work on this Musai looks like something out of the original Homeworld. That's something else I should get back to. There's so many things I could play. It's one of those sort of crippled with indecision in terms of variety, because it's like, I could do this and I could do that. And the issue being that apart from this series, there's very little interest in anything else that I do, so if it comes down to the notion of giving the viewers what they want, if the viewers do want something, they haven't exactly voiced their interest. I mean, I think most viewed on this channel was System Shock and this. Maybe some of my Fortnite work, which is hilarious considering all I did back then was bitch about the game. Zero builds is actually proving to be kind of fun, though. If I'm not gonna lie, that is kind of fun. It's not like the building was a problem in and of itself. It's a problem in a battle royale because it just doesn't make sense. Because I mean, it's unique. That's often the argument, that no other game is like that. And it's like, yes, but let's say you have a white elephant. And I am making a very obvious analogy. Let's say you have a white elephant. Cool. Does it do anything special? It's like, no, it just does what an elephant does. So then what the hell is what's the difference? What's the point? Like, it's unique for unique's sake. That's meaningless. That's nothing. I made the complaint then that the building that you do in that game, the building you do in Fortnite, you only do in Fortnite. It's not something that you can hone to help you anywhere else in any other game, which means that you need to commit to that game. And I for one, like playing other things, like indulging in other games, so I'm not just gonna endlessly grind that out to get good. But it's not like the building is gone, it's just gone from Battle Royale, which, like I said, makes total sense, because the building's fine in anything other than a Battle Royale game, because in a Battle Royale game, it just doesn't make sense. Besides, most of the sort of build battle fanatics, the addicts of it and so forth, they were doing most of their stuff in, like, box battle and goated or whatever in creative. They weren't doing it in Battle Royale. Well, let them do that there. Let them keep doing that there. They just don't like it because there's no longer that sense of accomplishment of the chicken dinner. But I've also pointed out the fact that Battle Royales are... It's a genre that doesn't make sense to me, and I don't care for it. I do not in the slightest care for it. God, there's talk that Halo Infinite's going to have a Battle Royale mode. I mean, fine, sure, I'm sure there's people who will be all over that, but... My co-collaborator went... Because I found that out from ZKA, he basically was like, so I've heard that Halo Infinite's going to have a Battle Royale mode. And then he just wrote in, kill me now. God, Flash gonna have a field day tearing that apart, because he made the whole point about it not doing that, now it's gonna do it. Because it's what the people want. Like, is it what the people want, or is it what corporate wants? Because ultimately, the people who were Halo fans were already playing it. What they want is more people playing, and they figured, well, let's appeal to the Battle Royale crowd. And it's like, and as a mode, that's fine, but if they start showing more love towards the Battle Royale mode and not the actual, conventional deathmatch and capture the flag and whatever modes, they're going to alienate the fan base that will actually stick around, because if people want a Battle Royale, they're spoiled for choice. They don't need to be playing Halo. I've gone off on a tangent. Which I don't... isn't something that I would apologize for, because in Let's Plays, that's what happens. You get a stream of consciousness. It's Ulysses, but less sophisticated.
Launch.
Ah, so yes, we're partnered with Roberto for this one to highlight that in the Apolly Lives route, they both live. So we have some kind of shared continuity in some of these alternate routes. Because they actually feature, and I do remember this, they feature Ryu in the Armro joins the Aug route when the Aug steals the Gundam Mark II, which highlights the fact that he's alive, which means that, who knows, maybe Slager's alive, maybe all the one-year war characters are alive in that route. It's an interesting take. Kind of undercuts the whole tragedy of war thing, because the whole point of a Gundam story is that, to highlight the nature of war and the nature of the story, expect half of the named characters to be dead by the end.
So you are here. Are you ready, Apolly? Spread out and
Of course, it's a nice way of rewarding the player for actually busting their ass and making that shit happen. The Cubely Mark II, which means that this might also share its route with Xeon Returns Early.
Don't take me lightly. Don't take me lightly.
Like, there's a lot of interesting little things that you can... Oh, Amon has it out for me. Ow. Why am I not boosting? I mean, I've got some LP work to finish, including this series. However, there's something I really want to play, and I'm following my new routine of not actually airing an episode until it's all locked and recorded, because that just makes for a much smoother experience. And I don't have the stress of, like, oh, well, I have to record this, and by extension, I have to play it, because otherwise the content that I've already done has run out. And the thing is, I want to keep what that particular project is close to my chest, so to speak, because... well, I don't know. It's a me project. I'm not playing it because I think it'll be particularly popular. I'm playing it because it's been a while since I've played it. I know that I'll enjoy playing it, and I often find that I'm a lot more interesting in these LPs if I'm playing something that I'm very enthusiastic about. Like my Half-Life 2 LP was, and Black Mesa was really good, and I was really enthusiastic to play those, and I did, and me having a good time makes for better commentary, I find. And part of the issue isn't that, a lot of the games that I've played I'm not interested in, it's that I'm interested in playing them, and then about halfway through I want to play something else, but I can't, because I'm locked in, I'm committed, I have to finish the game. So it starts off well enough, and then turns into, like, oh, now I have to do this. It's part of the reason I've kept this as a weekends-only thing, because then I've got plenty of time to do, to not burn myself out playing this.
heading back.
The funny part is that, viewers, you'll be getting that revelation probably 4 weeks after I had it. Because of how this airs. A little time capsule sent adrift in the valley of YouTube. Happily victorious. I don't know how long that took. Felt quick, probably wasn't. But yeah, next up will be Roberto. For me, there'll be something else for the viewers interspersed, because again, I'm about to play the exact same thing.